reproduction of this content is not allowed without the express written consent of EBH Fitness, LLC. We're back.
So we're going to wrap up week 9. I mean, hey, a lot of good games out there. Some defense was actually played this week, so I was glad to see that. You know, I'm the kind of an old school guy as a you know, you think of me as a basketball guy, but my sport was actually baseball, and I was a pitcher. And so I'm the guy that likes seeing pitching duels and seeing defenses shutting down offenses. And so to see some of the things I saw today from a couple of those games was to seal the deals. I was actually excited about.
There was a couple of big defensive stops to end some games.
There definitely was. Let's jump right into it. So Thursday night, you had really 2 blowouts. Pebble Hills beat Socorro 55-26, and then El Paso Leadership beats El Paso Christian Academy 59-6.
I mean, at the end of the day, Socorro scored points this year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They were going through years, where they didn't score double digits in multiple games, and they're scoring a lot of points this year. And I think that says a lot about what Coach Cano is doing down there. And, Coach Famaligi, formerly of Montwood, who's one of the best coaches around, is running the offense. So they're doing some things right. They got a pretty good running back. I keep hearing this guy's name, seeing his stats, and so they're moving in the right direction. And I personally know, like from my own personal experience, that the growth in Socorro is massive. I think in 10 years they're going to be a force because that's where everybody's moving to. That's where all the properties are.
That and you got programs like the Supers that are looking to start youth programs down in Socorro, which is going to help tremendously with football. I think down
help
there.
The kids not go out, go somewhere else.
Definitely. So today's games, man, that's Del Valle Andrus, number 1, number 10, 52-20. What a statement that Del Valle make, man. And a lot of people might not look at it that way, but for me, I look at it as a big stick. When I see Del Valle, that Eminem song, when it starts with a real Slim Shady, please stand up. Every time I hear that, like when I see Del Valle, that song pops in my head.
So we're getting to the season where coaches can't really worry about their friendships that they have with other coaches and things like that because they're having to get ready for the playoffs. And I used to tell people this: Dale Earnhardt didn't practice NASCAR by taking it slow around the track. He had to go. You can't practice shooting 3-pointers by shooting layups. It's time for them guys to get into playoff mode, so they can't take their foot off the gas.
Yeah.
So it's time for those guys to start playing, and that's what they're doing. You got to throw friendship, you got to throw good sportsmanship. I ain't saying they should be out there just being bad sports, but I mean as far as not telling their kids to hold back.
Yeah.
They got to be ready going into the postseason.
And that was a big game for the district-wise, standing-wise, because that solidified them at number 1. Mm-hmm. So I think if they lose, they probably fall to 2.
Or they'll be a tie. Yeah. So I mean, they did what they needed to do, and again, they are the team to beat this year in El Paso. It's not even a doubt.
No, sir. Then we got number 2, El Dorado, went to Bel Air. Last score we had was 56-13. That was third quarter, I think. So
El Dorado's doing El Dorado things. He said quarterback is I think that's what's made the difference for them this year. They got some quarterback play to go along with Estrada. And again, they're in a similar situation with Del Valle.
Yep.
These guys, they got to worry about who they're going to be playing in the first and second round of the playoffs. They can't take their foot off the gas. They got to play. They can't shoot layups. It's time for them to go.
Yeah. Then the next game was King and Teal made a statement against Hanks. I think that may have did that game, that loss, did that put Hanks on the outside looking in?
I think so, but I think we can go back to the Hanks-Andrus game. we knew who the top two teams in that district were going to be. We knew that Conatillo and Del Valle were going to be the top two teams.
Yeah.
We knew that Chapin was making noise, and so we knew that next spot, that last spot, was going to come down between Hanks and Andrus. And that was a close one.
Yeah.
But I think that those sorts of scenarios kind of play into the psyche of athletes as well.
Yeah.
So you'll have a team that's not playing as well, that's probably playing below themselves because of playoff scenarios and postseason things, and that it matters. Like, you can't just go and leave it on the line if you don't have nothing to play for. And I'm not saying that that's right, but I'm just saying we're talking about
human nature.
teenagers.
It's human nature. It's human nature. So that was 33-7. That was the final score. Well, I don't know if that was the final score. That was the last score that we got before we started the show. Man, I'm gonna tell you what. Austin made a statement today. Austin made a statement today in 4A.
I'm gonna tell you,
42-0.
Riverside was one of our favorites this year.
Yes, sir.
We liked what they've been doing with Coach Chavez taking over where Coach Recorder left off. They've been playing really, really well.
Yes, sir.
They've been putting it on some teams. But at the end of the day, Coach Pichardo, they did what they did. They ran the ball. They did. If you can't stop the run, you're going to have long nights every night.
Yes.
Period.
And, and I always said this jokingly, they locked the gates. Well, Austin went down there with a monster truck and just rode over the gates tonight.
Yeah. And people used to ask me, why do you like to run the ball so much? And I would tell them, if you beat somebody by 50 throwing the ball, it don't feel as bad as when you beat somebody by 50 by just pounding it.
It's demoralizing.
And they demoralize those kids today. And I think, again, we're getting ready for the playoffs. I think the 4A teams have a real shot in the postseason because of the way it lines up for them.
Yeah.
So, Austin is they're cutting their teeth. They're fine-tuning everything, and it came together today.
And you know what? I'm going to say something.
Riverside's still a good team. I'm going to tell you right now.
They definitely still a good team. There's going to be quite a few home games here in the city. And before I say what I want to say, kudos to EP Sports Network for live streaming out those games at the SAC.
Oh, yeah.
They are doing a great service to the city by getting exposure for these student athletes.
No doubt. You can watch that game from anywhere.
Yes. And I say all that to say this. There's going to be some playoff games played here.
Oh, yeah.
There's between every person in the city that live streams, no one can do all these games. These school districts are going to have to start opening up and letting people come in and provide a service to help these student athletes.
Honestly, they should just let it go and let it be school by school and let the schools make the decisions about how they're going to broadcast their games. Because we're past the no broadcast. We're past those days. Those days are done.
If it isn't TV, it can get put out there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, terrestrial TV, it can get put out there. But I want to say what's the next game? Isleta, 28-14 over Irving. It's a big win for them. That keeps them, I think that gives them, who did they lose to? Was it Riverside?
I think they've lost to Riverside and they lost to Austin. But Isleta, they were supposed to beat Irving. They've been playing well also this year. It's funny, the lower valley schools are kind of balling this year.
Oh,
so
yeah.
A lot of the teams that, are south of I-10 are putting it together. They're playing with a lot of pride, and Isleta's one of those schools.
And a lot of these schools are senior heavy too.
Always. That's
Senior heavy.
You know how I feel about that.
Yep.
Having 30 varsity games under your belt, 20 varsity games under your belt matters.
Especially this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
Next game up, Eastlake Franklin. So Eastlake holds on 21-14. There was two big plays that happened in this game. I sit there and watch that game. One was number 7, Riley Estrada. He came up with a big-time fumble recovery. Someone stripped Ernie Powers midway through the fourth quarter that took the air out of a Franklin drive. And then with 29 seconds left, number 1, Junior Troutman, came up with a huge play on the
Catch.
backfield. Well, he batted away, which was a 4th and 3. Which if they got that first down, Franklin continues their drive. That sealed the game for Eastlake.
You know, early in the season, we were talking about you don't win non-district championships. Eastlake was one of them teams that wasn't winning.
Nope.
But you got to look at who they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are certain teams that go out there and they're trying to play to get the most wins that they can by scheduling bad opponents. Scheduling bad opponents, teams that you know you can beat, is not going to get you prepared for the postseason. It's not going to get you prepared for district. Eastlake is one of those teams that traditionally has played tougher opponents, just like Pebble Hills has. I'm sure we're going to talk about them in a minute. That was another team. They weren't getting any wins in the non-district, but you don't win non-district titles. You don't win non-district trophies. So now those teams are coming on, and I think 1-6A is really kind of shaking itself out. There was another major game today that had big-time playoff implications between Coronado and Eastwood.
Yep.
And you know, Eastwood ended up pulling it out, which I told you, you know, Coach Lopez is going to figure it out with the quarterback situation over there, and that's what he does. That's what they do. And so I think 1-6A is kind of shaking itself out with Eastlake and Pebble Hills and Franklin and Eastwood now. And so now it's start preparing for that first round matchup.
Yeah.
Try to jockey so you can try to play a home game like we were just talking about.
Yep. Next game, and we get into now, which had, I mean, at the end of the day, all these teams are going into the playoffs, but it really comes down to whether you get a home playoff game in the first round or not, right?
Well, we know El Dorado's getting a home playoff game. But
Parkland wins 28-24 of Americas.
I'm going to tell you what. So that is a unique situation. And I've thought about this heavily. How would I prepare for a game that I already played 4 weeks ago? And I came to the conclusion that as a coach, I think I would have game planned for the second game at the same time I game planned for the first game with a different game plan. Because everybody and their mom's going to go back and watch that game film and base a game plan based off what you already did to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Coach McWhorter did a great job. He played an away game to beat a team that beat them by 20-plus points the last time they played. So that tells me it was some film watching going on. That tells me there were some things that were done in that coach's office to get them to where they need to be. And that was one of the games where there was a big-time defensive stop on 4th and 4.
Yep.
Americas was going in to win. I mean, at that point, 4th and 4, you got one of the best running backs in the city. Everybody knew what was going to happen, and
actually
they came up with it. It was 4th and 1. Sorry, and they came up with a massive stop.
Yep.
And there was a bunch of massive stops in that game. So you know, great job to Coach McWhorter and the rest of the Parkland staff. You know, I know a couple of those guys on there, and they work as hard as anybody. And it's another situation. You don't win non-district titles. You know, right now they trying to figure out, can they play a home game? Yeah. Because it was going to be between, you know, there's only 4 teams in the district. All 4 of them are going to go to the playoffs. We know El Dorado is going to win. So now between Americas, Bel Air, and Parkland, who was going to get that second spot to play at home? That was a big game. Now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So number 10, Mojica. Sorry I didn't get his first name. About 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Parkland does a successful onside kick.
Oh, man, when I saw that, I'm like, oh, my goodness. They were winning and onside it.
They went up and got the onside kick, and that allowed them to milk the clock some. And then
so let me tell you about that. As a coach, when you show that kind of confidence in your kids, it makes them play to that next level. Yeah. You know, as a coach, you've been in big situations. I'm going for 2. You know, you're showing those kids you got that confidence in them. It's going to make them play above their heads. That was a gutsy call. Yeah. Like, I couldn't believe it when it happened. I'm like, what? Yes, and it worked out for them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And, you know, both teams did get the ball in that fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. And like you were kind of talking about Cameron Johnson. So it was funny because America's got a big play to start that last fourth quarter drive, about 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. Got a 20-yard completion. And then they just started running the ball, right? Pounding the ball. And they got to that fourth. It was 4th and 2. They had to get to the 3-yard line to get a first down. And they got to the 4. And that was with 33 seconds left. And they came out of a timeout. And they ran what looked like they motioned into a direct snap to Cameron Johnson.
It was a weird type situation. And, just my stance on that.
They try to get you cute, I think.
My stance on that is when you're in a situation like that, you want to go to something that you've done thousands of times.
Yeah.
Because, again, we're in a tough situation. The pressure's on. We're tired. You want it to be to where it's second nature, and you're not having to think about it. You're not having to. So you got to do something you've done over and over and over again in that situation, and not something that's a gimmick. It's something that you haven't that you've been practicing, but you haven't just executed thousands of times.
So one of the things that we used to do when I coached college basketball was we literally tracked every play that was ran, who scored out of that play, and what the result, whether it was a bucket or not, right? And when it came to a situation like that, we went to the numbers and was like, okay, we've been running this 50% of the time. We've been getting this out of it. This is probably our best look. Let's run this. And it was and very often we never would draw something up that we hadn't tried either in practice before or, something that the kids, that was natural, right? Because that didn't look natural.
Second nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, something and that's kind of what I was getting at.
Yep.
And basketball is a great example. And I played basketball all through high school, and I was a big boy. I mean, I was an offensive lineman, but I still played basketball. And I remember asking my coach, God dang, coach, like we start every day conditioning. Like, why, bro? Like, I can't do this. And he said, well, anybody can come off the bench and shoot without being tired. What you gonna do in the fourth quarter when you're tired?
Yep.
Is your shot gonna change? Are you gonna run the play at the same pace? Are you gonna think about the little things when you're tired? So that made a lot of sense to me. Later on, as a coach, it resonated. When you get into those situations, you need to do something that you prepared for thousands of times that you're confident in.
And I don't want anyone to think that we're second guessing the coach. We're talking from this because
1,000 bad
oh
calls.
yeah because the irony of it is that we both coached. We both were head coaches, and so we can sit there and look at that and be like, okay, I get what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
But
I've gotten too cute before, and I've had people on my staff let me know you didn't make the call like Melton would have made it.
Yeah.
But as a coach, I can't really just speak on what goes through anybody's mind in that moment. And everybody's coaching to win.
And so for all we know, that's probably something they had worked on in practice time and time again for that situation. For all we know. But let's move on. So next game, Clint Fabens. Clint, last score we had was 32-12. Clint over Fabens.
People don't know how big of a rivalry game that is. That is a
right?
massive rivalry game. Massive.
Next game, Bowie 13, Mountain View 14. I don't think that was the
Defense.
final score, but that was another defensive game.
Defensive game, but those are both two teams that we've talked about in the past being hard-nosed teams that play defense and leave it on the field, and that game's indicative of those characteristics for sure.
Yeah. El Paso High wins 40-14 over Horizon. Chapin bounces back, wins 42-0 over Jefferson. I think that's not a surprise to anyone there.
To nobody.
Alpine wins 59-22 over Anthony.
That game was a lot closer early.
It was, and I don't know what happened.
And it was here, but Alpine is I don't want to call them an East Texas school. They're not an East Texas school. They're a school east of us, which is everybody.
Yeah.
So, but Anthony has done a lot better this year.
True.
And you got to look at they put up a bunch of points against a east of us school.
and I'm gonna save this Coronado Eastwood game to the very end. I want to hit these last two. The 6A game, well, 6-man football. Da Vinci loses 49-21 to MTLCA, team out of New Mexico, and then Boston Academy wins 48-0 over Emmanuel Christian. So the last game we're gonna look at is this Coronado Eastwood game, 28-31 final.
Very intriguing game for me. Very intriguing. So many playoff implications. Just an intriguing game.
Yeah, and Coronado really needed that game. They really needed that game, and we kind of talked about it last week about the cupboard isn't empty there. They've got talent there. They just got to figure out how to put it together.
Coronado's a sleeping giant. They've got kids. They're still putting it together. The very interesting thing about that game is the number of teammates that coached against each other. Those guys know each other.
Yeah.
The head coaches, the coordinators. I want to say there's at least 6 guys between those two staffs that all played at UTEP at the same time. So we're talking about staffs that know each other, and that's why that game was so close. And Coach Lopez has been doing it a little bit longer than Coach Pryor as a head coach, and I'm sure that experience kind of came into play when we're talking about a game that close. And I still think that their cupboard is full. I think Coach Pryor is going to eventually figure it out. He's going to put all his chess pieces where they need to be. They're going to be a force.
I don't disagree with you at all on that one. I think that team is ripe for making a run here the next couple of years.
When your best players are your young players,
yeah,
it don't suck.
No, it doesn't. It does not. I think that is the last game. That is it. So we've hit all the games. We talked about playoff implications a lot here. We got 2 weeks left?
Yeah, 2 games.
2 games left. It's gonna be interesting how this thing plays out. But like I said again, there's gonna be quite a few first round home football games here in El Paso.
I'm gonna predict that we have several teams win their first round game. I think Del Valle will win. I think Conatillo will win. I think El Dorado will win. The draw that you get is big time in the playoffs, and I think the 4A schools are going to make a little bit of noise.
Yeah.
And I think it's an exciting time in El Paso for high school football, and teams are starting to put it together, and it's a lot more competitive than it was in the past.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna close with this. So one of the things that people don't understand when you start talking about streaming, right, is so in order to stream out these games, playoff games, because it's no longer at the school level, it now goes up to UIL. That's $1,000 a game that some company has to pay to stream out these games. So when you see a price tag of $5 or $6 to watch said game, they've got to cover that cost somehow.
Oh yeah.
And then you throw in commentators and camera operators, so that's probably close to a $2,000 game for them. So as a consumer and as a fan of high school football here, when you see those things, I mean, they're in business. They're not doing it to lose money. And so I think not only fans need to understand that, but administrators need to understand that. Like, unless you're going to write them a check for that $2,000, which you can't for the playoffs.
I will say this, though. The streaming thing, although it's becoming more prevalent in high school sports, is still relatively new.
Yeah.
Still a lot of things that, like me personally, I wouldn't even know how to get into it. I would defer to somebody that knows more than me and just be like, let me know what I need to do. So the unknown is what I think that the drawback is, what's holding administrators throughout the state back, and I know that even here locally, there's been some issues between, one school wants to do this, one school wants to do that. And at the end of the day, I think it's a site-based decision-making thing. And that's, schools should make They should make decisions for themselves about how they're going to do it. All the schools have audio video programs. All the schools are capable of doing it on their own.
No, they're not.
And, well, they have
They have the equipment.
capabilities.
Yes, they don't have the know-how, but they have the.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't have the know-how.
But I'm gonna tell you, like, Eastwood's been streaming their stuff on YouTube
Yes.
for a while, and they got some guys I like listening to.
Oh
doing
man,
their
and
commentating.
we've had those two young men that do the Eastwood games. If y'all are watching
We
this,
should bring them in.
hey, if y'all are watching this, give me a call because I'm looking for commentators. Give me a call.
So you know, it's still relatively new in Texas. So I think that as we move forward with that, I think it's going to end up getting a lot better as people start understanding it a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, and then at the end of the day, if done correctly, what a way to generate revenue for your athletic department.
Oh, I remember when we were talking about streaming. This was when I was still coaching. I had the ability to raise a lot of money because I had boosters that did a lot for us, and we had a lot of connections in the city. And they were trying to get us to get people to, you know, be sponsors for like the Jumbotron, the games. And I was like, okay, well, is that money coming back to our program? Well, no, it's just going to go to the district. Well, then why am I working?
Exactly.
Like, I would work hard for us,
Yeah.
for my kids, for our program, but I'm not going to work for it to benefit somebody else. And that's another situation where there's communities that have fundraising power,
Yes.
and they could use the streaming service
Yes.
to like skyrocket the amount of revenue that they could create
Yes.
for their programs. And again, there's some community. It's not a secret. The Coronado, the Franklin, the Eastwood communities. Believe it or not, like the Bel Air, the Riverside.
Yes.
Don't get those communities twisted. They are strong.
Yep.
Because all the important people in our city came from those areas.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but it's like I said again, as we grow in this streaming thing, as people become more knowledgeable, it's gonna take off, and it's gonna elevate our high school sports here in town.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely will. And as you continue to see these things build out, I mean, like, I bring this up for people might think I bring it up for a selfish reason because we do streaming of sporting events, but no, it's not. It's at the end of the day, and if anybody's known me long enough, my pitch has not changed in this aspect. You've got to get exposure for these student athletes.
Oh yeah.
And the best way to do that is to put these games in front of whoever can make a decision on whether or not to give this student athlete money to come to that college.
If I was a college coach and I wasn't doing nothing on Friday night, I'd watch stream games of guys that are on my list to recruit.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm sitting in a hotel, you know, getting ready for my game the next day. Absolutely, I would be watching a game, watching my kids, and because I don't want to just see highlights. I want to see full games. I want to see how the flow works.
Exactly.
I want to see chemistry. I don't want to just see cut-ups. So,
And a lot of times I want to see it live. I don't want to go back and watch it later, right?
I mean, I'm still going to go back and watch it later because, you know, I'm going to run things back 1,000 times. But, again, it's going to grow.
Yeah. But no, folks, week 9 in the books. A lot of teams who they were who we thought they were. They were who we thought they were.
There's still a couple of teams that I thought were there's some teams that I thought differently about that is not kind of panning out the way I thought they would pan out. And,
True.
You know,
True.
that happens too.
The injuries and everything else. But no, it's been another great episode of the Borderland Sports Report. You can catch us, download the FSEN app on iOS, Android, Roku, Amazon Fire Stick. Watch live, video on demand. We've got some exciting content coming. We've made some strategic partnerships as a entity with to start getting student athletes exposure in other regions of the state of Texas. You're going to start seeing some games from Midland played here on our network, and our games played on their network.
I think you were telling me about it. Some JUCOs with baseball and basketball.
Yes.
In Central Texas, huh?
Midland Christian, MCC. not the Midland Christian, Midland Community College, MCC,
Yeah.
who every year they're ranked.
Oh, I mean,
Nationally.
in baseball, it's some JUCOs in Texas that do the damn thing. I'm gonna tell you that.
They are ranked nationally in men's basketball, baseball, and softball. And so those games will start appearing on our app that you can watch live. We'll publish the dates and times, but again, it's I hate to say this and sound this, but like either you get with the times or you get left behind. And I don't want to see El Paso left behind.
I'm not gonna lie, I've been one of them people that's left behind because when that whole streaming thing came up during COVID, I didn't want no part of it.
No.
But I'm low tech. I'm old school.
But
so,
as a coach, you don't have time.
yeah, no. So
That's a whole nother ball.
I've been like, y'all handle it. I don't care.
That's a whole nother can of worms to open up. But no, it's been another episode of Borderland Sports Report. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching us. This will get uploaded and be available video on demand tomorrow. Thank you guys.
Be out next week.
Oh yeah, we will not have a show next week. We have some conflicting things. Talking about streaming.
I'm going to Vegas.
He's going to Vegas. He's going to Vegas, but I'll be in Dallas Fort Worth streaming out the state playoff volleyball games for TCAF.
Okay, yeah.
And so we'll have those 3 state playoff games, the 2 semifinals and the championship, all streamed on the network, getting more exposure for their student athletes. And so we're gonna make the trip up to Dallas to do that. So we go where we're wanted. That's it. But thank you guys. Be blessed and have a good one.